Hello and welcome everybody to New Earth Consciousness. Tanya here with Dr. Katie Larson. Welcome, Katie.
My
Um, so,
pleasure.
Dr. Katie is a hypnotherapist, growth coach, and somatic practitioner who works with highly sensitive people, empaths, and intuitives. And she's helped initiate meaningful personal growth in thousands of individuals, but she's best known for guiding her clients through what she quests, which are inner journeys that offer opportunities to explore your life from deeper perspectives, bringing more purpose, meaning, and joy. And her website is growthquests.com. And you can follow her on Instagram at Dr. Katie Growth Quests. So thank you for being here.
Yes, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I love the word quests.
Yeah.
Uh, in how you, I mean, that's just such a powerful word. It makes me
Mhm.
think of um, Joseph Campbell and the
That's
hero's
right. I was like,
journey.
that's who is
Yeah,
derived from. Yep.
yeah, yeah. And I think we can tend to lose sight of that in
Yeah.
the world that we live in. That's very I don't know what's the word. It's almost like um, has a tendency towards maybe throwing people off of their path. I don't know what that
Yeah.
is. If there's just like, it's just
I think
part
it's
of the human
distractions, right?
experience.
There's a lot of distractions. Yeah.
Distractions and shoulds and,
Yeah.
external expectations. And it's like,
Mm.
it's almost like it can feel like a battle for your own soul. Like,
Right.
I don't know, the word redemption comes to my mind, but
Hmm.
yeah, let's talk about that. Like,
Yeah.
quest is such a,
It's very purposeful, this word.
yeah.
And the combination of the two growth quests, it's very purposeful. And so you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned, it reminds me of Joseph Campbell.
Yeah.
When about 10 years ago, I was writing a dissertation, and the content of the dissertation was on something called transformative learning. And so that's the process that we go through to change our perceptions about ourselves and the world. And honestly, it's a little bit rare nowadays because so many of us kind of get stuck into these are my
Mhm.
thoughts and beliefs that I was handed, and I will just go with these, and very rarely compassionately, critically reflect on things of like, why do I think that? Where does that come from? Etc. And so that's what my dissertation was in. And when I was studying for this, three authors that just blew my mind, and not only blew my mind, but not so in a I can't believe I've never thought of this way, but in a this is the most familiar content to my soul way, like a soul recognized it as honest to God truth, was Joseph Campbell and his work with the hero's journey, Marie Murdoch and her work with the heroine's journey for more of the
Mhm.
feminine role as she goes through her life journey, and then kind of a like lesser known author, but someone whose work I absolutely love is Bill Plotkin. And his main book was Soulcraft at the time. And all of them are discussing about we have a journey in this life. And sometimes, even if you go into like more what I believe now with my practice in hypnotherapy, is sometimes we actually know what our journey is supposed to be like. Like we can actually tap into that blueprint and kind of just get a little quick, reminder of like, right, right, okay, stay the course. This is what I planned for myself. And we can get into that in a moment. But we have these overarching journeys that last our entire life. And I use journey as almost like that lifelong process, right? But within that long journey, the reason I chose the word quest is that it's a little side quest where we're focused on one particular thing. And my opinion is your focus is to grow in a certain area, right? And so I think we're on like 5 or 6 growth quests at a time. Sometimes we're trying to grow as a parent or having more self-compassion or even our business. They're just these little side quests. But what I've noticed, and this is why my logo is a fern, is these little side quests are just fractals of the longer journey, right? So I use this like metaphor of the fern as being the long journey, and the fern is just replicating fractals of an image of itself. And so these little quests that we go on, once we realize that they're all really similar and we kind of go through the same steps and the same phases within that for ourselves, it takes a lot of pressure off. It takes a lot of pressure off yourself, and you're like, okay, all right, I'm just in my little quest. I'm in my side quest, all right? And we all have certain ones that we're in. And I help people see their life from a lot more mythological, narrative, more like epic perspective. But also through doing that, you kind of cut yourself some slack because, like, the main character has flaws,
Mm.
has origin story that's got trauma in it and has sad stories in it and has, a lot of theatrical things because like any good journey, you have all of these aspects to it. So that's, yes, you were not mistaken. It is very much in honor of Joseph Campbell and the likes, my work.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I love how there's, synchronicities in life. I was just having this conversation with a friend yesterday, and we were talking about intention. And when you're talking about like side quests, like it seems like, okay, there's little intentions and there's like the meta intention,
I like that. Yeah.
right? And so then if we, if our soul, kind of has this ultimate path, a larger path that's been divinely designed, and we're not supposed to really necessarily know 100% what that is, right? It's
Right.
the discovery. And I think that what can happen to so many of us is like we're like, yeah, that's where I'm headed. And I got to get in the river, right? And we get in the
Yeah.
river, we start paddling, and we hit some choppy waters. And then we're
Yeah.
like, oh my God,
I know.
geez, like I got to get out of this thing. And then we get off
Hmm.
and we just sit on the shore
Yeah. Watch it for a bit.
because we're just like,
Recover.
yeah,
Hmm.
recover or whatever. Or maybe or we doubt ourselves like, oh my God,
Yes.
man, maybe I just made the wrong choice. And I think that
Right.
we forget that pain sometimes it really is like I think it's unavoidable. And
Yeah.
so maybe you can talk about that because, you know, we are our culture definitely is avoid pain at all
I
costs,
know.
whatever feels good and is the fastest way to feeling good and the
And
easiest.
like the
And
quickest gratification. Yeah.
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 Yeah, because I
Well,
know
I
you've
think,
had your own
yeah,
journey too of just like, I
definitely.
mean, we all do, right? We all have our moments of
And
maybe,
isn't it funny how we have almost like these themes? Like one of my themes, I love that you use the river analogy. It's so spot on for one of my life themes. One of my like, even though I named my business after growth, I think actually one of my life themes is flow, because I actually have a really challenging time going with the flow because it can be so jarring to a highly sensitive nervous system. So just like you mentioned in the intro, I work with highly sensitive people, empaths, intuitives, and by nature, we're 20% of the population and we have more active nervous systems, right? So we have 10 to 50% more active nervous system. And so we're really affected by our environment. And when you are really affected by your environment, it can be so challenging to go with the flow because that flow was dependent on like the perfect weather conditions and like the perfect like rules and set of expectations. And then when it changes, our whole world kind of gets flipped upside down. And so, like every practitioner, I think, and yourself included, like we're all kind of, I wouldn't put the emphasis on the wound, but we're all kind of like wounded healers, right? Like we went through a challenge and a wound. We really learned a lot about it. And then you're like, I got to share this with everyone, which is the hero's journey, right? The sharing is the last stage of the journey and the hero's journey. And like myself, like I had a childhood that was really stable, really predictable. And then I had a young adulthood and adulthood that I sometimes it was thrust on me, but sometimes chose a like chaotic, very dimensional life. I moved overseas in 2011 and then I moved like 20 some times. And I was constantly putting myself through this like gauntlet or like the rapids
Mhm.
just to see if I could like handle things. And sometimes I could, and sometimes I couldn't. And I went through many different countries. I went to Spain and South Africa and Singapore and Cambodia and Hong Kong. And it's like each different move allowed me to a kind of reflect on who am I when like the part of me I knew before was like ripped away, right? Like it's been ripped away. So I'm like, who am I now? Who am I now? So my late 20s, early 30s was just a series of the rugs being pulled out from underneath me.
Mhm.
And that is why I did the dissertation on this transformative learning, because there's such a exponential growth that happens with each big life transition. And they are not actually that fun. Like when I look back on that time, I
Mhm.
do remember in Technicolor like the great memories, but I'm actually writing a memoir right now and I'm remembering all of the nitty-gritty challenges. Like you said, we can't avoid pain, we can't avoid suffering, we can't avoid that like muck and like yuckiness. And I think all of that was very rich in my own journey as well. So that did inspire me to study that and to understand this, et cetera, et cetera. But back to the suffering, I think as somebody who kind of got addicted to the change, like the rapid change, I got really addicted to that.
Yeah.
I was never really prepared for, I had a moment this year that completely put me on my own suffering where I was part of a natural disaster. And so I live in the United States and I live in the state of Florida. And about in 2024, we purchased a home, we renovated it, and then 3 months later, it was gone to a hurricane. And it was so similar
Mm.
at first to me moving and changing and letting rugs be pulled out from underneath me
Yeah.
that I was like, right, I know this, right? I just went into that mode of like, okay, you gotta pack this up, you gotta get this, gotta find a place for the kids, get it. And I was in survival mode. And I know we had chatted personally before of like, that was very well and good. And like my sympathetic nervous system kind of took over and took care of me and got me into survival for almost a year,
Mhm.
actually. But it was like a year later when I finally started to feel safe enough that I allowed myself to collapse. And you get to have that moment where you see, oh, that was really challenging. That was really like sad. There's a lot of grief in there that I hadn't felt yet. And I think for all of us who read the self-help books, or, I have a doctor in front of my name, I'm an academic with this. Yes, I have life experience. Yes, I have a theoretical understanding of this, but when you're going through it, nothing can prepare you for that visceral experience.
Mhm.
And perhaps that is, a fractal of the human experience of you as a soul. And we can talk more about this in a moment. Like as a soul, we make these plans. And as a hypnotherapist, what I do with my clients is I allow you to go into that realm and to speak with your higher self and understand the plan
Mm.
and get a better understanding of where you are, where you've been, what you're supposed to do, and who you're working with and why, et cetera, et cetera. You can get a lot of clarity in that other realm with your higher self. But even though you know it, you
Mm.
realize you were really ambitious in a spiritual world. And when you're in the human world where it's more dense and messy and mucky, and you have a nervous system that's like, based on however old human evolution, you got to still experience it. You got to still feel it. And it can be quite intense. So there is like a very unique interplay between being able to access this
Yeah.
plan and being living it. And I said a lot there, but so I'll pause
Yeah,
and
it's a
let us
lot.
unpack it. But
But
yes.
it's true. It's like you don't get to bypass the being human part. And as you were speaking, I remember a spiritual mentor of mine, he would look at me and he would say, Tanya, you don't have to be strong all the time. And I
Yeah.
think that again, in our culture, there's this, yeah, I don't know why, this narrative of like, gotta be strong all the time, gotta be superhuman, gotta be, mentally tough all the time.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, and I guess I'm curious, I've never really, is Is there a difference between the hero's journey and the heroine's journey?
There is.
I'd love to
Yeah.
hear it because I have never heard of that writer that you mentioned. What was her name?
Yeah. So Maureen Murdoch, she did a really good job because like most people in academia, your only job when you get to this echelon of education is to find where there's missing gaps and fill in the gap, right? So
Mhm.
even my own work, I filled in a gap of like transformative learning was always assumed to only happen with adults. And I said, I think adolescents can do this and, filled in that gap. And so Maureen Murdoch was really enamored by Joseph Campbell's work. And she said, but this is all from the perspective of the man, for the interacting of what the man goes through in the hero's journey when he engages with the feminine. It's like he's, finding the feminine within himself. And so it's like, where's the woman's character in this? What is she doing? So when she rewrote it from a perspective of women as a main character energy, because so often they're put in roles. And like, I love Joseph Campbell. He used to work for a women's university. He had a really cool insight into the feminine journey, but he did write from the male perspective. But when she wrote from a feminine perspective, she was saying some of the things that he missed out on was when we are, you might really enjoy this. She argued that when we're young as girls, we're born with our feminine energy. Again, not female, but feminine energy from the perspective of spontaneity, creativity, nurturing, playful. Those are very feminine energy qualities.
Mhm.
And when we're really young, you can remember like twirling around in your living room and like, playing dolls and things like that. It just is natural in us as girls. And then what happens is for modern times, we're put into a system. And for most of us, we were in a system of education. And education by nature is structured, it has steps, it has rigidity, and it has rewards for productivity, which by nature are masculine. Again, not male, but masculine energy. When you especially are looking at these from the perspective of like Eastern philosophical energies, right? And so what happens for a lot of women is we get really good at that masculine system because it's like a game. And we're
Mhm.
actually quite good. And it feels really nice to be rewarded with
Mhm.
these rewards at the end. Like I give me a sticker and a trophy any day, like, like I
Yeah,
love that,
right.
right? So what her argument was is that in a heroine's journey, you don't stop at the pinnacle of the success. You actually climb up to the top and you get to the top rung and you look around and you realize that's it. This is it. Like I learned to play the game and I got to the top of the game and that's it. And what many of us start to do is we feel a longing to reconnect to the feminine. And so through that longing, we learn as women to reconnect with the energies that fostered us. And so it doesn't like lose me now that I'm going through perimenopause. And so many of like the systems that I felt like I had to climb and like get all of these like,
Mhm.
accolades and rewards, etc. They're not really valuing me anymore, like and I don't feel valued in that area. Like you don't get as much support as a woman, as a mother, et cetera, et cetera. And so you are turning in back into the feminine where you're reconnecting with your creativity, you're reconnecting with your spontaneity and your love of fun and pleasure and senses and things that are like considered feminine. And so her rest of the journey is how women make amends with their view of their internal mother, their view of their internal father, and how she can like use that as like a divine marriage, kind of like what Jung would say is a divine marriage of like appreciating the masculine and feminine within you as a woman and using both going forward. But like that's not really touched on in the hero's journey. So it's a lot more energetic, it's a lot more self-reflective, but it's in its essence, it's like allowing yourself as a woman to be proud of your masculine energy and like the awards and accolades that you received, but also to be just as proud of the feminine energy because it will never reward you. It will never give you a trophy. It will never give you, a sticker, but it will enrich you and it'll be magical and it will give your life dimension, just like you had when you were a kid. And so that's a little bit more like the
Mm.
heroine's journey.
It feels like it becomes a bodily experience, like
Yeah,
because the rewards and the stickers or whatever, it's a very mental thing, right? It's like,
right,
yes, I've used my whatever, my masculine energy or my strategic
right.
energy or whatever to be like, yes, I figured it out. I
Yes.
accomplished that thing that I set out to do. And then, this
Yes.
descent into, okay, but now what? Um,
Mm,
Maybe the reward isn't external, but the reward is like, oh, I just feel luscious in
yeah,
my divine feminine essence,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And I like the way you said like it's a bodily experience because I also recognize that like I do a lot of chakra work with my clients because if we just look at those lower three chakras,
Mhm.
so the root is red, the sacral is orange, and the solar plexus is yellow. When we have a lot of like healing that's going on where we get stuck, and a lot of us are feeling like we're in midlife crises or whatever, like I have everything on paper, but why doesn't it feel right?
Mhm.
A lot of times the way I like to describe it as your chakras are like little nesting dolls that kind of like nest within each other. We've all seen those little Russian nesting dolls, and they all are kind of like representing an age that the chakra came online and was developed. And so that little red root chakra is actually developed in utero, but it really like came online or it came online in utero, but it really developed when you were an infant and almost a toddler. And
Mm.
it's so in order to heal that like root chakra energy, we just almost have to go back to that time of what did that little baby me need?
Oh, interesting.
Rest, love, calm, food, and that's it, right? Like it's very
Mhm.
simple to heal that root energy, stillness. And then you go to that sacral chakra and that orange energy. And it's like it came online when we were two in our like early toddlerhood, and it really started to develop in our 3, 4, 5 age. And what did we do during that age? Well, we had fun, we played, there was no rules yet. You got to
Mhm.
use your imagination, you got to play with your senses, your emotions came online. So it's like, what do we need to heal that? We need to go back into that phase of us. And that's what the heroine's journey is saying is like go back into your childhood phase of the sacral energy because sacral is quite feminine, right?
Mm.
And so it's like just allowing us to really go back into that phase. And then the solar plexus, it kind of came online when we were like preteens, like 7, 8, 9, but was like really developed in our teenage times. And that's our willpower and
Mm.
our ambition and our love of structure and our love of rules. And so, what a lot of us get stuck in is the solar plexus. So, we're trying to like do our way out. We're trying to do our way out, think our way out, mindset our way out, reward our way out. But really, you can't always heal when you're almost overdoing the solar plexus. You can't use the solar plexus to heal it. You almost have to like go backwards and invert and go back to the little baby and go back to the toddler and really foster them. And so when you say it's like a bodily thing, I completely agree with you because those first two chakras, they're more physical, right? They're more like play, like you're sitting still, being comfortable, being like held, and just, as if your own mommy was like rocking you back and forth. You're doing that kind of somatic work. And then like the playful sacral energies, you're doing like dancing and that like nonlinear movement. And it's like those types of things actually really help us when we are stuck in that mindset of like, gotta achieve, gotta do my way out of this, etc. So
Mm.
I'm glad you saw that connection because I also feel that that's really strong in my clients and even myself.
Yeah. Yeah, the willpower. I remember that phase in my life. I mean, my will was so strong. I completely overrode the needs of
Yeah.
my body and,
Yeah.
burned out. It's like, man,
You can ignore them easier because you're like focused.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
just focused and you're like, I'm young and I know what I want. And,
Yeah.
it's interesting. So, So I'm curious what happens in the higher chakras then? What happens when
Yeah,
you
so
are
what I have nicknamed, and I'm sure this is like I've borrowed it from someone, but who I can't remember, is I've nicknamed the lower three chakras your service to self chakras.
Mm,
And then the upper chakras are your service to others chakras. And the reason I like to do that separation is because it's really important for empaths to understand how many of the service to other chakras they're running on and how few of their service to self chakras they're familiar with. Because that's often for an empath, they have to go back down into those lower chakras to heal them. Because for most of their life, we're so permeable with energies
mhm.
that we don't know where we begin and where we end, right?
Yeah.
So when we look at those upper chakras, think about what they're for. We have a heart that is compassion, right? It's self-compassion, but it's compassion and love. And that's an outward energy. And in fact, it's infinite. That's the only chakra that's like infinite. It goes out as far as possible because you're connecting with so many people. So
Mhm,
if you're an empath, you probably had a really strong heart chakra from a long time where you're reading the room,
mhm,
feeling everybody around you, sending compassion.
mhm,
Then you have your throat chakra, which is about speaking your honest truth, expressing your honest, authentic self, which is for a lot of empaths, we have like that chameleon syndrome where we understand how
mhm,
to change our tone and our voice and our message depending on the community we're in, right? And so that is, yes, it's for yourself, but it's mostly for you in the social setting. So these are coming online later in life, right? So we have maybe in our like late teenage years, your heart, but it kind of develops in your 20s when you start to fall in love for the first time. And then your throat, it's kind of a midlife time because it's when we start to realize our truth. And so it's no mistake that a lot of millennial women, Gen X women, at all genders, but especially women right now, we're finding our truth because our throat chakras are really coming online right around now, where we realize I've abandoned myself my whole life. Like that's not how I really feel. So a lot of the development of the throat chakra is understanding our honest truth and being able to express it, whether it's verbally, in other ways, but that's our throat chakra. And then I kind of think of this third eye almost as like so the third eye and the crown I almost think is our like control center because the third eye is more understanding the imaginal realm and how everything fits together.
mhm,
And so it can be quite developed when you're young, right? In fact, most people say, like in different cultures, why they protect the child's head is because the crown chakra and the third eye are still quite open
mhm,
to the spiritual realms,
mhm,
right? And so the third eye is a little bit more concerned with your actual autonomous body. So it's more concerned with your own self. It can engage with the other realm through the crown, but it's really concerned with like how you as a unit are functioning. And it's like kind of giving you, I don't know, like a little internal map of how you work. And so that's really important to have your whole life. But the older we get, the better this becomes, right?
mhm,
And then our crown chakra is like the divine guidance. And so it's like what we're picking up on from another realm, another frequency, another, source, whatever, but we're kind of like picking this up. And so it's influencing the whole body, but it's more engaged with this other
mhm,
spiritual side. It's like our interface between the two. But those can be like those upper chakras, those can never develop in some people. you know, like they
mhm,
can never be interested in their relationship with the bigger world. Or, like what I tend to work with more often, is some of us were born really developed in these areas
mhm,
as highly sensitive and empathic people. And we've been living up there our whole lives. And then when you ask yourself, ask that client or even yourself, like, well, where do you feel that in your body?
mhm,
Can't answer it, right?
mhm,
You can't answer it because you don't remember engaging in those lower chakras. Maybe you were in a hurry to grow up or you were forced to grow up, you had to be hyper vigilant, whatever, whatever, but it increased the maturity of these upper chakras. And so that's kind of where we are at this stage is like I find a lot of us are recognizing ourselves as energetic beings and it's like now we have to if we were really strong in one, maybe we were really strong in our bodies in our athleticism or something. And then we're like, oh, I actually have a whole other relationship with my spiritual self. or we were really engaged with the spiritual world, and then now we have to re-engage with our bodies. But it seems like there's a trend in how, feel free to like comment on that, but I feel like there's a trend where we're trying to balance.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And I think, women, at least our generation, I'm not sure about the generations to come. I'm sure it's different for them because we kind of, each generation is creating a new pathway.
Yeah.
But I think in our generation, it's like, I don't know, we just, we're we're kind of been, we choose to be mothers, we choose to be the nurturers and the care. Like, I know for myself,
Hmm.
at an early age, I became a single mother, and so
Hmm.
I didn't really have a chance to really figure out, well, who am I really?
Yeah,
What really makes
exactly.
me tick? I was really, so I
Yeah.
worked with children, and I don't regret any of it, but now that I'm 51,
Yeah.
I'm like, well, but okay,
What
I
about
did
me?
all of that.
Yeah.
And maybe that's like you were saying, you were talking about the throat and the midlife. It's like, okay, but actually
Mhm.
what's
I
true for
agree.
me? What do I
Yeah.
really want to experience in my life? What do I
I love
actually want to
that.
bring forth? And so I think a lot of women are in
Yeah, I
that
agree.
space that they
Yeah.
don't
And I
know who
think,
they are yet.
I'm going through perimenopause, so I'm 43 and I'm losing the hormones that allowed me to do those exact things that you described really well,
Hmm.
right? Like I'm losing the forgiveness hormones. I'm losing the
Yeah.
hormones that allowed me to overlook injustice. I'm losing the hormones that always I've made choices based on the unit
Hmm.
over myself.
Hmm.
I'm losing a lot of these chemicals. So it's so funny when we see things as holistic, sometimes I didn't realize the degree that biochemistry
That's
made me who I was, right?
yeah.
And so it's like as those started to dissolve, I also am feeling these same feelings that you are of like, wait, who am I? And I think the challenging aspect of that was I chose to have children late. And so I still have young kids, right? I have a
Mhm.
4-year-old and an 8-year-old. Whereas a lot of people, when they have when they have children younger, their children are older. And so, like biologically, you can then go through your new coming of age while the children don't need you as much.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of millennial women and Gen X women who chose to have children late, I don't regret it, not one bit. But where the challenge is becoming is they still need the version of me
Yeah.
that wants to put them first and wants to keep the glue of the family together. And so I think where a lot of our rage comes as perimenopausal and menopausal women is I feel as if I am performing that now, and it is no longer my true intention, Like my true intention wants to be selfish, and my true intention wants to navel gaze, and I just want to worry about my own life because those hormones to keep everyone else first are gone.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And so it is a really interesting time for all of us that we're going through this at the same time where we're like, okay. I do want society to function in a nice, smooth, glued way, but also it feels quite performative at this point. And it's like it's a disservice to ourselves not to go into the self and not find ways we've abandoned ourselves in the past, whether by choice or by accident. Because I also was like you said, you're like, I chose to do this, I chose to do this. I also made those choices. But then I also now, as like that I have a different lens hormonally, I'm like, but why? Like, why did
Yeah.
I choose that?
Why? Yeah, exactly. That's the deeper question, why? Yeah,
Yeah.
super interesting. And I was just reflecting too, when you're talking about the journey of the heroine's journey and kind of moving back into this more yeah, feminine, just
Mm,
dance and creativity and all of that. I was it's interesting how quickly our tastes can change. So
yeah.
I like to I love to dance. I love to do ecstatic dance. And
Hmm.
for a while I would host these, ecstatic dances for the community, and I would curate the, five rhythms in these
Oh,
songs.
fun. I love those. Yeah.
Yeah. And so my friend and I, we were dancing the other night, and I'm like, "Oh, I'll pull up an old dance list." And it was
Like
only like,
soundtrack. Yeah.
yeah, soundtrack. Like it was only a couple years old. And
Yeah.
I started playing it. I'm like, wow, this music does not get me
Yeah.
going like it used to, you know? It was
I
like,
know. I believe you.
right? Like you're just
Same.
like, yeah,
You have like eras of music that like touch a certain time. Yeah.
yeah. I'm like,
Totally.
wow, I must have been really working through some more aggressive, I don't know,
Right?
emotions or something. And
I
now
can
I'm
see
just wanting
that.
to be more flowing and easy and I don't know, just different. And so I was kind of laughing because I
I can
kept
totally
fast
see
forwarding,
that.
like, nope, not that one. No,
Yeah,
not
you're
that
like, that doesn't hit anymore.
no,
Yeah.
not anymore. Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
agree. And then, I love this. I think, I'm gonna butcher the quote, but like we've all seen this meme floating around that's like, sometimes when you talk to indigenous elders and you say, oh, I'm depressed or I'm upset, they'll ask you, when did you stop dancing? When did you stop singing? And that is like reminiscent of what we're talking about is like, it may seem so simple to return to these practices. But I also feel like in this era where we're like growing in complexity and growing in technology and growing in like distance from one another, there's no better way than to go back to what makes us truly human. I mean, those are universal things to sing, to dance, to play, to laugh. And as someone who has traveled the whole world and been on every continent and put myself in positions with local people, that is like there's nothing to talk about because you don't know the words.
Mhm,
There's something so powerful about these very primal human activities
mhm,
where I have shared with dancing and I have shared with laughing and I have shared play, creating kites and playing kites, whatever, because
yeah,
that's what really unites us.
mhm,
And in a time where we're all starting to feel really divided, by it, whether it's by choice or by design,
mhm,
our act of resistance in this moment is to go back into what makes us human and to really indulge in it from a perspective of I really want to feel human and I want to feel alive and I want to allow that side of me to not take over, but to be influential, more so than the one that wants the trophy, and to be better than and to achieve. Because like let the machines do that. Like, like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
totally, totally. Yeah, I often I wonder if the role of AI, like, where is it going to take us? Is it going to free us up to have more time to
right.
be, be in connection with each other and yeah, I mean, I agree. I think we crave that so
Yeah, we
much.
really do. And when I like and you I don't know how old's your child now or children?
Well, my oldest is 22, and then I still have a 14-year-old. And
Yeah.
I have to share, after a day of like being on the computer and doing my work things, it was in the evening, and my 14-year-old comes in. He's like, Mama, you gotta come outside. And it was dark. He's like, there's we've got like five owls and they're all hooting at each other right
Oh,
now.
Dad.
And to step outside with
I
him and just to have
know.
that little moment and just listening to the owls, it's like,
Same. I love that.
right? It's like, oh,
Yeah.
right.
And it's
Like,
like, thank God they like do that for us. They're like little time travel portals, right? Of like, same with my kids, because I have my youngest is 4.5. And it's like watching them encounter things. Like he was playing with a ladybug the other day, and it
mhm.
was like I loved that I could actually pause for a minute and bring myself like because it's almost like a gear shift of a bicycle. Like, you're on
Yeah,
a really
totally.
different gear, and then you have to go like
Yeah.
click, 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 and like
Right.
down
Yeah, because it's like,
downshift.
right? Yeah.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
like to go back into that energy field of the toddler is sacral energy. And it's like that sacral energy is so healing, And so it was really nice to be in with him. And I'll actually share one other thing that is a little bit more spiritual about the sacral energy healing. So if you're listening to this and you are in a tough spot and you're feeling burnt out or you're having a catastrophe or you're in a midlife crisis, a lot of us are going to be like, their ears are like perked up, like, yeah, that's me. What do you got?
Totally.
Um, the way that I helped myself without knowing it until 1 year later, right? That 1 year later, I had a reflection of it. But while I was going through this natural disaster, I had this overabundance of energy to dance. It was just like it kept coming out, right?
Oh,
And so I would go and I would take my children, and there was a really great community event. It was similar to static dance, but they call it Movement Monday.
mhm.
And I would bring my kids. It was like somewhat kid friendly, and my husband, and we would just dance, and we would do this, and then I would make as many opportunities in the home while we cooked and things like that to dance. And I just kept putting dance in. And I hadn't really been really actively dancing like the years leading up to that. But
Yeah,
it was like this year of the disaster, it was like dance almost was like this glue that kind
yeah.
of helped me. And then 1 year later, I was in my own trance and I was doing some, self trance work in hypnotherapy, but like in this trance realm. And I encountered my inner child that was about 7 years old, 8 years old. And she looked at me and she said, I saved your life this year, didn't I?
Oh,
And she was, I
wow.
know, and she was dancing and she was
Wow.
twirling a ribbon. And I was like, we
Wow.
always think that a bigger person will save us, a stronger, a older, or whatever, some external. And it was her. It was her. She was little and she was
Oh
like,
my gosh.
God, I helped you. I saved your life. And it was like that trust of like, no, I need to dance. This trust in that, I really will never forget. And I feel so grateful for her of like, they live inside you and they want you to heal. And sometimes they can do it through these impulses to go back to when you were their age.
Wow. That really just, I
I
mean,
know. Me
tears. I'm
too.
just like, oh my
Me
gosh.
too.
It's like, oh, so
And I
there's,
honored her, and I just hugged her in that
yeah,
realm. And I was like,
yeah,
you really did.
yeah. Oh my
You
God.
saved me.
We forget them.
Yeah,
They do, and they want to be seen, and they want to contribute, and they do have
yeah,
something to contribute. I feel
you're
like,
right.
yeah, what is it about? It's almost like our world, it's like literally beats the child out of us. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? There's something
yeah,
about like, oh yeah, that's you're done with that. Like grow up, be an adult, be
yeah.
responsible. And it's like, oh my God.
Oh, that's so beneficial for us. There's a really beautiful quote that's like, the creative adult is the child who survived.
Oh wow, yeah.
And it's true because like creativity is the sacral energy and that's the childhood, like that's the toddler and up energy. And it's like it is not um and I think that's why I like the nesting dolls, the concentric idea of energy instead of a linear evolution,
Mm,
because we were kind of sold that we like linearly evolve in development, but it's like, I think we really need to like sit still and rest like a little baby
yeah.
sometimes,
Well, that's
you know?
interesting because I've never thought of the chakras as being nested. We tend to think of like,
Mm,
even in
yeah,
yoga or whatever, like, okay, you're going to bring the
yeah,
energy up like in this
yeah,
linear way, step by step, and the idea that
yeah.
that we're more spherical,
What's interesting about it is that's one of my gifts is to see energy, and
Mhm.
that's how I see it. And so it's like it's very fun for me to describe it like that because when I see it in someone, I can see it concentric circles and it just gets like wider,
Yeah.
but you're still holding. It's like oh, is it Ken Wilber? There's like a famous guy that always says transcend but include. Transcend but include,
Mm.
right? You're not evolving out of, you're including it. And
Yeah.
it's like, good grief, like how all of us, like right now, like complexity wise, like we're not like evolving and then it gets like easier. One of the reasons the complexity is so daunting to all of us is because we're bringing all this stuff up from like what we knew from like, like long time ago. And
Yeah.
so it can be quite heavy, but it's okay sometimes to go in and out of the little circles energetically and shift gears because some days you do need to have that
Mm.
thoughtful process and other days you just want to play and that's okay.
Yeah. Beautiful. Oh my gosh,
Hmm.
this has been so good. Thank you,
I love it
Katie.
too. Thank you
Thank
for
you
this.
so
I
much.
need it too.
Yeah, no, this is so yeah, thank you. This is really, really powerful, very impactful. I'm
Good.
sure for those that are listening, um, yeah, please check out Katie's website. And is there anything else you'd like to share, like as far as offers that you have for people and ways that they can work with you?
I'm actually redoing that right now on the website. So
Mm,
I'm redesigning the way that I work to be a lot more purposeful in people's lives, but I still am offering like what one-offs with people. So if you're like, I need an orientation, or I want to meet my higher self. I want to validate that I'm a soul living in a human body. That
mhm,
is right in my wheelhouse, and those can be done online
mhm.
anywhere in the world. And also, I'm in person in the city of St. Petersburg, Florida. So if something I mentioned to you, whether it was, the chakras or the higher self or the soul, etc., feels like an alignment, just reach out.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Katie. Thank you to the listeners.
It's
Please like,
my
share, and
pleasure.
subscribe as always. And yeah, have a beautiful rest of your day, everybody. And thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye, everybody.